Paynter. I am the assistant principal here, and I also do a bit of the academic counseling or advising. Um, Eleni Gillis is also here today. She's our admissions coordinator, and as she had mentioned a few minutes ago, for those of you who aren't in here yet, her daughter is applying to schools now too, and she's become one of our college experts here, and she's a really good resource as well. So we're going to be discussing today completing an application, going over entrance exams like the SAT and ACT. Eleni will be talking about essays for colleges. We will also discuss letters of recommendation, financial aid, and there will be some time at the end for some questions and answers. So to start us off, because our school is located technically in California, we're going to take a look at some of the California schools first, but we will be discussing schools from all across the country as well, and how to apply for those. So specifically, we'll talk about the California state schools, community colleges, and private or out-of-state universities. The UC system, um, its application submission deadlines go until November 30th. It's already open now, so October 1st to November 30th. It has an application for all of the universities through the UC University system, through the apply.universityofcalifornia.edu website. This particular website, you can apply to any of the UC schools, and you would pay a fee of $80 per campus, but only make one application. There are no letters of recommendation required, but schools in the UC system do require that students meet a minimum admission requirements from the UC or A through G subject course list. And if we have time towards the end of our presentation, I could go through some of those required courses as well. There are some essays that are required. These are personal insight questions, and Eleni will be discussing those more in a little bit. The California State Universities, also called CSUs, also has one application that students will complete to apply to any of the 23 colleges through the CSU system. The college application deadline is also November 30th, and the fees are a little bit cheaper than the UC schools. They're $70 per application or per campus. And again, there are no letters of recommendation required and no essays required for this one. There's also many community colleges here in California. There are several benefits to attending a community college. For one, the only requirement is a high school diploma, so students don't have to meet the UC A through G course requirements. They do have transfer programs where students can transfer straight to a four-year university. They have TAG programs, which stands for Transfer Admission Guarantee. So as long as students meet a certain minimum requirement for each of the campuses that they want to apply to, then they could automatically be accepted as long as they meet those requirements. Community colleges also have more than just associate's degrees or transfer programs, but they often have certificate programs. For an example, I have several friends who are firefighters who got went through a certificate program through a local community college and now have very strong careers in firefighting. The tuition is significantly less than a four-year university. In fact, most community colleges even have some options for free tuition. And most students are eligible for financial aid as well. There is a platform that the state of California has put out called californiacolleges.edu. This is a website that helps students to explore possible interests and ideas for majoring in a college or careers that they could pursue for after high school. It also helps to inform parents about certain topics related to careers and colleges for after high school. And this program is free for California students in grades 6th through 12th grade. And I know that this is just for California, and many of you are from different states, but I would encourage you to do a research through your state because your state might have a similar web-based platform to help students to discover what kind of careers they might be interested in and what kind of majors based on their current interests, or maybe if they have courses that they love in high school and want to pursue that to a higher degree, they might be able to find some career options that would be available to them. So, for our private and out of state universities, I would highly encourage that you look for specific universities online. Some universities do have applications that are partnered with the Common App or Coalition, but some of them do have applications that you would need to go to their specific college website in order to find. Be very careful about deadlines. There are campus specific deadlines, even for those who apply using the Common App, which I will talk about in a little bit. And it's also highly recommended that you check your email or portal that you use through that specific college daily um, in order to get any updated information or check on your application process. So, as mentioned in the previous slide, one of the online application platforms is Coalition. This one has about 150 colleges around the United States that uses this application. Um, However, this is starting to dwindle a little bit. It's not as popular as it used to be, but one thing that is a nice perk out of this is that a coalition application got started to help partner with families in order to provide more financial aid. So usually the colleges that partner with Coalition offer pretty good financial aid packages. And application fees for each of the colleges that partner with this application, they vary based on the college. And it's recommended if you are going to use this application that you make sure that all of the colleges that you want to apply to or that your child wants to apply to also uses that app. So another very common application that's online that many colleges partner with is the Common App. And this is the one that I hear about more often. It has over 1,000 colleges around the United States now that partner with the Common App. It's been around for 40 years, so even before the internet process allowed students to apply online. And as with the Coalition app, the application fees do vary based on which college you're applying to. And one thing that's nice about the Common App is that students can look ahead. Usually in the summertime, they released 7 possible essay prompts where students will have to choose one of those. And Eleni will talk about it a little bit more in detail. And those are some things. There was a question on our survey recently about what could a junior do in order to start preparing for colleges. And this is one of those things that a junior could do before senior year starts in order to get a little bit ahead on the process is by looking at those essay prompts ahead of time. So what is needed for applications? You will need a high school transcript it would be really helpful if you could verify with CPA. So you can speak to Eleni, or you could speak to me, or even your child's teacher if you needed to update your mailing address, for an example. And then Eleni and I would probably make that update in our database. Um, Also, you can request official or unofficial transcripts using CPA's transcript request form. So for those of you who have come in recently, I'm going to post that link to this presentation again in the chat box. These links are active, so in that document that I just posted in the chat box, you could click on those links and it'll direct you right to the transcript request form. Um, Also, for the applications, you will need a list of activities for in which you or your child participates. Also, any work information, family responsibilities. You will need parent guardian information, um, any academic honors or achievements that you've accomplished in high school, and also test scores and dates from any college entrance exams that have been taken, like the SATs or the ACTs. So speaking of the SATs and the ACTs, there are three types of colleges now, or three types of requirements from colleges. There's the test optional requirement, which is where colleges will allow you to submit SAT scores, but they don't require this. This would be helpful if as a student, you've done really well on the SAT or the ACT, for an example, and you want to show that off to the college and help boost your chances of getting into the college. There's also a test flexible, where colleges may require you to submit an SAT score if you don't meet specific requirements. For an example, if a college has a minimum GPA requirement, but if you don't meet that minimum GPA requirement, then you could take the SAT or the ACT, and if you do really well on that, you could show them that you're ready for college and ready for their college in particular. And then there's also the test blind colleges, like the UC schools and the CSU schools, um, who won't even consider SAT or ACT scores if they are submitted. So for the SATs, these are typically pretty common. You register through collegeboard.org, and it's not too late if you're a senior this year and want to register for the November 4th exam. The late registration deadline is October 24th in order to do that. Although most students have taken, at this point in their senior year, have taken SATs if their schools that they're applying to requires that. The ACTs, you can register through act.org, and the next available exam for the ACT is November 9th, and you'll need to register. I'm sorry, I said November 9th, that's December 9th, and you'll need to register by November 3rd. So I did have a question about what the difference between the SATs and the ACTs are. The ACTs do have science content on them as well, and I heard the science content is a little bit more rigorous. They're both exams are about 3 hours long, and the ACTs have an optional essay, which would be at about 40 minutes to that total test taking time. The SATs, as far as math goes, has less geometry and more problem solving and data analysis. And the ACTs have more geometry and less of the problem solving and analysis. So if you are a student who really loved geometry, for an example, and excelled in that class, then the ACTs might be good as far as math is concerned. And if you do really well in the sciences, both exams have reading and writing as part of the exam as well. Okay, and Eleni's going to tell a little bit about writing college essays.
Okay. Nicole, will you go to the next slide? Okay, what is a college essay? I'm going to start by kind of going over in an broad overview what college admissions officers are looking for when they read your essays. So I'm going to start with one, your college essay is a personal statement, personal response that admission officer take into consideration in your admissions process. Two, this helps colleges learn who you are outside of your grades. And three, it's all about you, your story in your own words. This is where you're going to showcase who you are, your talents, and highlight anything that you have done in your high school or even junior high career if you've started in junior high. Struggles, adversities, everything. How do colleges read these? So your UCs will ask for personal PIQ questions. These are personal insight questions. These are, and other colleges outside of the UCs will call it something else, but it'll be a personal response, a personal statement. This is an interview style type process. It's 350 words or less. Some will do 500 words or less. The UCs do 350. Other schools will do, like Arizona State and some of the other colleges will do 500 or less. You want to be direct. Less is more. This is more of tell me how it is. This is not like your actual Common App essays. This is show, don't tell. Provide concrete details. I've listed, and you'll all get examples of different PIQ examples. I do want to say from personal experience with my daughter this year, her personal responses were very unique to why she wanted to get into that college. You just the best thing to do when you're trying to figure out, well, what do I write about in my PIQ? Because there's no prompt. It's just tell us something about you that we don't already know from your application process, is try to find a hot button. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an example. My daughter applied to ASU and she applied to the communications department, and she was asked in her application to pick a secondary major because that one was very impacted. So she for that application, she wrote why she showcased her writing style, and she put in there why she felt like she should be at that school in that communications major. And it worked because she got in. just a little praise report there. Common applications. Okay, so this is through the Common App. And like we said earlier, the Common applications will have 7 different prompts. This year, and for those of you who are juniors, this year's prompts were the same as last year. So there's a good chance that next year there might be some different variations. I would strongly suggest look at those prompts. I've also given you examples here of 10 Common App essay examples. If you go to this link, it'll give you good essays and bad essays of what is not a good essay and what is a good essay. These actually is 300, and it's not 350 words or less. It's usually 600. That's my mistake on that one. It's usually about 600 words or less. One thing you want to make note of when you're writing these essays is do not go over that word count. They are counting. Do not go over them. Stay within them. And your Common application essays are common flow. They usually give you 7 prompts, and then there is one that says make your own prompt. So if you decide to do the make your own prompt, make it clear what your prompt is, what you're telling them about. Providing more context. This is where the section is titled additional comments. This is where on top of your essays, on top of your PIQ questions, this is where you can talk about anything, and this is usually optional, but this is where you can talk about personal loss, personal grief, any trauma you've experienced. And it's really sad to say that if you have a story to tell and you can tell it, then tell it. You're trying to separate yourself from everyone else. So if you have a story that you have a trauma story or any story that you have to tell that you've overcome, that is going to put you ahead. That'll put you ahead of the game. What are admissions readers looking for? Who is the student outside the GPA and test scores? What is the student's story? What can the student offer to the university? How does a student approach obstacles? Is the student likable? What can be shared that hasn't already been shared? And can you write? Essays and comment. There are 7 prompts, and we just went over that. 7 prompts. Students choose from one. It's 650 word responses, and supplemental essays from the school. So just one thing to add on there. Not every school requires you to go to the Common App or through an application forum. I would strongly suggest go to the school website first and apply directly with them. And they will tell you if they require you to go to the Common App. Some schools do require you to go directly through Common App to apply, and some schools don't. Always check with the school first on their Apply Today portal and see what they require. UC apps, there are 8 personal insight questions. Students will choose from 4 prompts to answer, and then your personal PIQ or personal response. You want these essays to be concise and to the point. And then a lot of state schools, and this happens to be a California state because we're more in California. We're based in California, but this is almost for most state schools do not require anything. So you don't have to, which is good and bad. It's easy to reply to because you just fill out the applications, but you don't get to tell them about yourself. So they're judging you only on your grades and your scores. Okay, some essays, do and don'ts. Spell out all acronyms. Keep it conversational. Keep it clean and professional. So this is for essays, not necessarily for PIQs. This is for essays. Don't do this on your essays. Don't creative write. Don't philosophize. Don't joke. Don't have questionable language. And do not rely on AI chat box essays. Colleges will be checking, and they may view this as plagiarism, and most likely they will. You want to avoid cliches, and here are some examples of some cliches. I need to be true to myself. Time heals all wounds. Every cloud has a silver lining. You win some, you lose some. Little did I know. Any type of cliche is not original, so don't use them. Okay, so here are some essay checklists. Make sure you review your prompts, note your word count. Did you answer the prompt? Check that you didn't generalize. Only write about yourself. Do not tell someone else's story and include yourself in there. Don't over edit, and make sure you do self-censor a bit. And then here are very important. These are 2, and these are going to help you so much. These are the 2 resources that have essay examples and personal questions and response to personal questions as well.
All right. And going into letters of recommendation, these are not required by all colleges, but some colleges require letters of recommendation. So some good tips for these include to give your recommenders at least 2 weeks notice. It takes time to prepare something that will make the student stand out. So make sure that you give the teachers or administrators or counselors time to prepare this. So like I mentioned, recommenders are often counselors. At CPA, I am the one that you would probably go to for an academic counselor. So as you are making applications, you can add my name as the counselor for the school. You could also reach out to teachers for a letter of recommendation, to other administrators. And so like I would be one to do this. Mr. Beck, for an example, could do this, or unrelated adults. It's really helpful if you could provide some extra information to the recommender. Some people make a resume of everything that they've accomplished in high school. This could include a summary of skills, your work experience, some non-academic interests, community service that you've completed, awards or achievements. The purpose of getting a college degree. What do you want to do with a college degree? And anything that would make you stand out. So when I do a letter of recommendation for the student, my goal is to give them um, an extra kind of oomph for the college so that they do stand out among other applicants. So I'm going to do what I can uh, to write my best letter of recommendation um, for the college. So it would be really helpful if somebody were to ask me to write a letter of recommendation to give me some more information that I could include in that letter. So on the survey that was sent out, there were lots of questions about financial aid. And one of the most important starting places with financial aid is the free application for federal student aid, also called FAFSA. Um, you would need to complete this in order to receive any type of financial aid from the federal government. And even if you are not sure if you would be um, eligible for financial aid, I would highly recommend to do this. You never know what kind of grants are available, what kind of loans are available, work resources as well. The application for the FAFSA usually opens on October 1st, but this year is a little bit different because this year there's going to be an updated, simplified application that comes out. And because of that, it's running a little bit late and it's not going to be available until December. And these are for the students that would start college in fall of 2024. So the deadline to apply is June 30th, but it is important. Well, I would recommend not to wait that long. I would recommend to apply immediately. California students, for an example, have to complete the FAFSA prior to the March 2nd deadline for the Cal Grant. And each state and school will set its own deadline for the FAFSA and for their grants. And some of those might be coming up sooner than you would think. So I would highly recommend to begin doing the FAFSA application as soon as it comes out. So what kind of things can you do while you're waiting for that application to come out? One thing is to create an account. This is a federal student aid or FSA ID. This is the way that you would put your digital signature onto the FAFSA application. It's highly recommended that you do this before completing the FAFSA. I've heard people say to do it at least a week ahead of time. Parents and students will need their own account, and it's important that they have a separate account. I went to a College Board workshop recently where people had mentioned, I'm sorry, not College Board, but Cal Grant workshop. And people had mentioned that one of the most common errors that they see is that parents might fill in an account for their child, but accidentally put their date of birth as their child's date of birth. And so it's easier to make little mistakes if you are trying to complete this for someone else. So parents and students, I highly recommend you make your own account. You can be in the same room, but this is a way to do a digital signature. So only you should technically be using that account, just like you should only sign for yourself if you were to sign an official document. You will need a social security number. You'll need a mobile phone number and or an email address. You'll need a date of birth. And also, you'll have to use that account that you make in order to begin the FAFSA application. You will also need income tax return information, and it is possible to automatically transfer this IRS data directly to the application. And finally, you'll also need a list of up to 10 colleges to submit to. So you can't do more than 10, but something that you can do even after you submit the application is that you could go back and you could remove colleges and add more colleges in its place. So as long as you only have 10 at one time, but it is okay to make those changes after you submit the application. If you want to, for an example, apply to a different college and you decided no on a specific college that you for sure are not going to attend. So, another thing that is really good for all of those who live across the United States is the state and regional college tuition discounts, also called NAFSA. So depending on where you live, you could attend an out-of-state college at a reduced tuition amount. So it might not be the exact same as in-state tuition, but it won't be as expensive as out-of-state tuition. So your eligibility depends on where you live, and I'd highly recommend to check the websites that are listed here. And like I mentioned before, in the chat box, there is a link to this presentation that has active links that you can look at. So here in California, we would probably use the Western Undergraduate Exchange, also referred to as WUI. And Eleni will give you an example of this in a few minutes. But for those who live in the New England area, you might use this New England Board of Higher Education. For those who are in the Midwest, you might look at this Midwest Student Exchange Program. And this is dependent or could be dependent on even what major the student is looking into, and how much of a discount they can get could be dependent on the program or the major. And here is one example that Eleni will explain about.
Yeah, so here is from the WUI. And when you go to the link, like Nicole said, when you go to the link, you'll want to really look at the schools that are in the different exchanges and the different portals where they all kind of speak to each other. So for example, here in California, Boise State was one of them. My daughter did apply. This is one that has a rare one that has a GPA requirement. So you have to have a minimum of a 3.6 to be eligible when you apply. But I just wanted to give you kind of an example. So a non-resident actual tuition is $27,000. If you have the 3.6 and above, you will get the WUI scholarship, which is 15,224, and then your total academic year, just scholarship, just tuition only comes down to 11,000 for the year. So that's quite a significant savings. And this is a great way to go make college a little bit affordable and not be in state. So here in California, it's really hard to get into California schools. So a lot of our kids here are looking at these other schools, or I should say their parents more so, like me, looking at these outside schools. Well, where else can we go if you don't get into an in-state school that's not going to break my bank? So this is just an example. There's a lot of other schools, and through your, like I said, depending on where your region, go through and study them. Do make sure you look at if they have exclusions of majors, or if they have any GPA requirements, etc. Because it can get tricky. For example, Arizona State University. All of their campuses are WUI except for their main one, Tempe. Go figure, don't know why. As U of A, University of Arizona, they are part of WUI with only two majors that I've never even heard of. So You'll see if you see the college there, and don't get too excited, make sure you read and see what that is. I will say that there are a lot of colleges like like University of Arizona, that give you merit money based on GPA. So for example, my daughter applied to U of A, and she was given an automatic $30,000 for her GPA. So there have been some kids that have applied there that have like amazing resumes or amazing GPAs, and they've practically gotten a full ride to go to U of A on academics only. So make sure you look into a lot of those schools. There's a lot of schools that do that. I did want to also just throw in one other school, and there's got to be others like it, as I did my own personal research with my daughter. This has become one of her top choices. The University of Utah is one of the only schools, or one of the very few schools. I'm sure there's more out there, I just can't find them, but they allow students to apply for in-state residency their first year. So for example, your first year, she would bypass the WUI, this scholarship that we're looking at right now. She would apply for she would apply for residency her first year. She would have to pay out-of-state tuition for the first year, but for the next remaining years, she would be paying the in-state tuition, which is $9,000 in-state at the University of Utah. What's also very nice about that is if you get a grant or you get a scholarship from that major or that school, let's say you apply because now you're not doing their WUI, you'll get a different scholarship from that school. Let's say it's let's go with $10,000 for your first year. They will honor that scholarship for the next 3 years at half. So if your tuition is $9,000 and you got a $10,000 scholarship, they're still going to honor $5,000 of that, making your tuition $4,000 for the year. So these are things that, as you're researching, that are available there. You don't know until you research, and that's, like I was telling Nicole earlier, I knew a lot of this stuff, but until I started applying it with my daughter, it just opened up so much more. So you will discover so much more in terms of that. There is money out there to be given. You just have to find it.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of finding the money, there are a lot of other scholarships available. There are a lot of websites to help you search for scholarships. These are a few of them that have been used by our students in the past. So scholarship search through fastweb.com, scholarship list, CAPEX, the Fair Opportunity Project, Going Merry, through the Department of Labor, has a scholarship finder, scholarship search by U.S. State, Big Future, which is a program through College Board, and Peterson Scholarship Search. These are just some places that you can search for scholarships. There's a lot out there, and these are just for scholarships. These don't cover the grants that may be offered through individual schools. So these scholarships would probably be academic based, or maybe an essay base to show why you should be selected for that scholarship. So I'd highly recommend to go through those links. And again, they're on that document that I put in the chat box. So you could click on those as well. So now we do have about 15-20 minutes left. So we have some more time for questions and answers. So I'm going to stop the sharing of the screen here. And if you do have some questions, then you can type them in the chat box. You can ask out loud. We'd be happy to answer any questions that some have. One question that I remember seeing from the survey was how a junior can start working toward getting ready to prepare for college. For that particular question, I would recommend to be looking into college entrance exams like the ACT or the SAT. Those should be taken by junior year. Sometimes people that are sophomores take that, but most students will take that in their junior year. Junior year is also a really good time to be doing research. So, good time to search online for particular majors that you might be interested in. For an example, if you like US history, you could do a search. What kind of um, majors are there for those that like history or government um, or music? Now is a good time to research for juniors and for younger.
Yeah. One thing to add on that, if you have the means, go visit your schools, go visit these schools, go walk on the campus, go talk to students there. I've done this for a few colleges with my daughter, and it makes a huge difference because then they can actually say, I can see myself here, or I can't see myself here.
So, any particular questions or anything specific colleges that you might be looking into? Okay. And as more people are waiting to respond, I'm going to put our contact information up here on the screen as well. Okay, so if you do think of more questions later, you are always welcome to email Eleni or email me. Reach out to our school. Also, here is our phone number. This is a CEEB code that is used when you register for ACTs or SATs, also used to search for your high school when you apply to colleges. Okay. Well, several people are saying thank you very much. Very informative. You're welcome. And if you have any other questions that you think about later, we are oh, somebody's asking where's that code? That's on this document. It's also on our college and resource page on our school website as well. So the CEEB code, this is a way to search for our high school when you register for things like the SAT or the ACT. It's 054623. You could also do a search for our school as well, and it should pop up pretty quickly, but you could also search for our school using this number as well. So this is the same code that is referred to for NCAA. This is our typical school code when searching for our school. Yep. And speaking of NCAA, Eleni, you had mentioned that you have a little bit of experience with NCAA as well.
A little bit. So for Mrs. Roman, for Nathan, you're going to have a much different process because you're also going to have the recruiting process, I'm assuming, for him. So that, as wonderful as that process is, it can also be come application time a little more hectic because there's a lot more you have to do in your application process. So as he's going through his recruitment, you can always reach out if you have any questions with that, because that's a very unique experience and avenue to go.
Mhm.
And a lot of those colleges that you had put on there, they're going to require multiple essays, and he has to write multiple essays. He still has to apply the same way everybody else does, even if he's been given even if he's given a verbal commitment. My nephew went to Ohio State, so I've had several in my family go there on academic scholarships. I mean, I'm sorry, on sports scholarships, athletic scholarships. Yes, he needs to. It'll be fun up until it's all fun and games until you actually have to apply and submit your whole life to the school.
Mhm. One thing that is nice though is that there is a lot that you can prepare ahead of time so it's not so busy in your fall semester of senior year. Like looking at those college essays ahead of time and starting to prepare for those so it's just one less thing that you need to be so concerned about with senior year courses as well as applications. Yeah, and definitely keep in touch with both of us. We would be happy to help. And if you have specific questions, reach out to us. And if we don't have answers right away, we know how to look for the answers. So, and we know some other people that we can ask as well.